Hello YouTube, Otaku here. I'm trying a whole new different segment onto this channel where I like to come in on a little surprise note, so let's try this again. 3, 2, 1. Hello YouTube, Otaku here. I'm going to be your personal narrator. Now, we're going to be getting back into it with page 35 of The Grapes of Wrath. If you haven't been onto this channel before, go ahead and go to the channel description to get a better idea of who and what this channel is going to be about. If you have been onto this channel before, grab your eucalyptus inhalation ritual equipment and let's begin the clinkage. Clink, clink, clink. It was alright. I mean, I'm just getting the bits right now, nothing too major because I'm saving all that for tonight. I'm going to be having a very special time and I'm looking forward to going on that trip and having a lot of power, having a lot of fuel to go along with me. Got to get to my destination. Also, please do not forget your water. Make sure to have that on standby. This time I do have it, but sometimes you must do as I say and not as I do. But just like everything else, we are going to continue on, and we're just going to start at the top of page 35. Yeah. Yes, the bank is only made of men. The bank is only made of men. No, you're wrong there. Quite wrong there. The bank is something else than man. It happens that every man in the bank knows what the bank does, and yet the bank doesn't. The bank is something more than men. I tell you, it's the monster. Men made it, but they can't control it. The tenants cried. Grandpa killed Indians. Pa killed snakes for the land. Maybe we can't kill banks. They're worse than Indians. And snakes. Maybe we gotta fight to keep our land, like Pa and Grandpa did. Now the owner men grew angry. You'll have to go. But it's ours, the tenant men cried. We know the bank, the monster owns it. You'll have to go. We'll get our guns, like Grandpa when the Indians came. What then? Well, first the sheriff, then the troops. You'll be stealing if you try to stay. You'll be murderers if you kill to stay. The monster is in men, but it can make men do what it wants. But if we go, where will we go? How will we go? We got no money. We're sorry, said the owner man. The bank, the 50,000 acre owner can't be responsible. You're on land that isn't yours. Once over the line, maybe you could pick cotton in the fall. Maybe you could go on relief. Why don't you go on west to California? There's work there. Like really shitty, fucked up, no good for anybody work there maybe. I'm so tired of freaking hearing about work in California. I'm just talking about from the last bits of the book. This is me talking. Everybody just kept saying there's work until you actually get to Cali, and then everybody's like there's no work. Shit. Why don't you go to west on to California? There's work there, and it never gets cold. Why, you could reach out anywhere and pick an orange. Both of those are lies. First off, there's a massive thunderstorm that comes at the end of this book. And second, yeah, if you try to go and grab an orange, they'll shoot you. Even if it's expired, because they just burn and throw things into the ocean and people aren't allowed to grab them. The police are there to make sure you can't. Yeah, screw that. This is all but just a bunch of lies. Why, there's always some kind of crop to work it. That's a lie too. You know, within like a month or two span of each other, you gotta wait for crops to come in and actually be decent. And that's like not enough to feed families in the long term. That's too spotty. Why don't you go there? ? And the aldermen started their cars and rolled away. The tenement squatted down on their hams again to mark the dust with a stick, to figure, to wonder. The sunburned faces were dark, and their sun-whipped eyes were light. The women moved cautiously out of the doorways towards their men, and the children crept behind the women, cautiously ready to run. The bigger boys squatted beside their fathers, because they made them men. Because that made them men. After a time, the women asked, "What did he want?" ? And the men looked up for a second, and the smolder of pain was in their eyes. "We got to get off. A tractor and a superintendent, like factories." Yeah, I guess, page 36, but I guess I get what they're saying about the whole, you can't really kill for this, the monsters, it's not like you can just kill one person, the bank goes away, but they could just keep replacing people from the banks and just keep being like, "Hey, police, they're just going over there and killing our men. You're going to keep doing that? Or we're not going to the police will get in trouble for not doing their job." So, like, it's not really people you're dealing with. It's like you're dealing with, I don't want to say principles. Maybe principles is the right term, but you're mostly dealing with signatures. Not really like people as much as authority. And it's not like you're dealing with just a couple men, where you're dealing with the backings of an entire financial institution. And all that deals with like powerful influence and whatever that may entail politically or like judicially. All that stuff just really boils down to, they just tell the people what to do. They hire the people to go and do the job for them. They themselves are not the puppets pulling the strings. They're the puppeteer that creates the puppets for others. And that's untouchable, because you could destroy as many puppets as you want. At the end of the day, the puppeteer would just keep making more, and you'll never truly touch the puppeteer, because so many people are lining up to work for the puppeteer, the dude who makes the freaking things. Anyways. Where do we go? Where we go? ? The women asked. We don't know. And the women went quietly back into the homes and herded the children ahead of them. They knew that the men so hurt and so perplexed may turn to anger, even on people he loves. They left the people alone to figure and to wander in the dust. After a time, perhaps the tenant man looked about, and a pump pulled in 10 years ago with a gooseneck handle and iron flowers on the spouts. As the chopping blocks where 1,000 chickens had been killed, at the hand plow lying in the shed, and the padding crib hanging in the rafters over it. The children crowded about the women in the houses. "What are we going to do, Ma? ? Where are we going?" And the women said, "We don't know yet. Go out and play. But don't go near your father. He might whale you if you go near him." And the women went on with their work. But at the time they watched the men squatting in the dust, perplexed and figuring. The trailers came over to the roads and into the fields. Great crawlers moved like insects. Having the incredible strengths of insects, they crawled over the ground, laying the track and rolling on it and picking it up. Diesel tractors, puttering what they stood idle. I want to say that line again. Puttering while they stood idle. There we go. And thundered when they moved, and they settled down to a droning roar. Snub-nosed monsters, raising the dust and sticking their snouts into it, straight down the country, across the country. through fences, through dooryards, in and out of gullies and straight lines. They did not run on the ground, but in their own roadbeds. They ignored hills and gulches, water courses, fences, houses. The man sitting in the iron seat did not look like a man. Gloved goggles, rubber dust mask over nose and mouth. He was a part of the monster, a robot in the seats. The thunder of the cylinder sounded through the country, because one with the air and the earth, so that the earth and the air muttered in sympathetic vibration. Whew, almost didn't catch that. The driver could not control it. Muttered in sympathetic vibration. It's like I'm assuming that's the air muttered in sympathetic vibration. So it was like a like I'm assuming that kind of vibration. It's like a constant. Anyways. Through a dozen farms and straight back. A twitch at the controls could swerve the cats, but the driver's hands could not switch because the monster that built the tractor, the monsters that sent the tractor out, but had somehow got into the driver's hands, into his brain and muscle, had goggled him and muzzled him, goggled his mind, muzzled his speech, goggled his perception, muzzled his protest. And he could not see the land as it was. He could not smell the land as it smelled. His feet did not stamp the clods or feel the warmth and power of the earth. He sat in an iron seat and stepped on the iron pedal. He did not cheer or beat or curse or encourage or extensions of his power. And because of this, he did not cheer or whip or curse or encourage himself. He did not know or own or trust or beseech the land. If a seed dropped, did not germinate, it was nothing. If the young thrusting plant withered in drought or drowned in a flood of rain, it was no more to the driver than to the tractor. He loved the land no more than the bank loved the land. He could admire the tractor. It machine surfaced its surges of power, the roars of its detonating cylinders, but it was not his tractor. Behind the tractor rolled the shining disc, cutting the earth with blades, not plowing but surgery, putting the cut earth to the right where the second row of discs cut in, and pushed it to the left, slicing blade shining, polished by the cut earth, and pulled behind the disc. The harrows combing with iron teeth so that the little clods broke up and the earth laid smooth. Beside the harrows, the long cedars, 12 curved iron pennies. Just because I don't recognize that off rip, you already know what we do around here. I'm going to go ahead and put that down into a proper area where I look up. There we are. Iron, P-E-N-E. Whatever. Iron peen. I don't recognize that word, so I definitely got to look it up later. Alright, let's continue. Behind the harrows, the long cedars, 12 curved iron pennies erected in the foundry. Organisms set by gears, raping metaphorically. Yeah, they really went down that route. Raping metaphorically, raping without passion. The driver sat in his iron seat and he was proud of the straight lines he did not will. Proud of the tractor he did not own or love. Proud of the power he could not control. And when the crop grew and was harvest, no man had crumbled a hot clod in his fingers and let the earth shift past his fingertips. No man had touched the seed or lusted for the growth. Men ate what they had not raised, had no connections with the bread. The land bored under iron, and under iron gradually died, for it was not loved or hated. It was no prayers or curses. It had no prayers or curses. At noon, the tractor driver stopped sometimes near a tenant's house and opened his lunch. Sandwich wrapped in wax paper, white bread, pickle, chicken, spam, a piece of pie branded like an engine part. He ate without relish, and tenants not yet moved away, page 38, came out to see him. looked curiously while the goggles were taken off and the rubber dust mask, leaving wide circles across the eyes and large white circles across the nose and mouth. Alright, before we continue, we're at top of page 38. I'm going to go ahead and smoke. I think if you're just doing what you care about, there wouldn't be a place to undermine another person. I mean, unless you were like agreeing into a competition, then of course, but I think if you find yourself doing something that you love and it does come at the expense of other people's ambitions, I think it's possible to snuff a flame out before it even ignites. Whether I think that's right or wrong isn't really important. I think that what is important is just exactly what that flame was going to illuminate. Hydration check. Alright, let's continue. The exhaust of the tractor puttered on. For fuel was so cheap, it is more efficient to leave the engine running than to heat the diesel nose for a new start. For fuel was so cheap, it is more efficient to leave the engine running than to heat the diesel nose for a new start. Curious children crowded close. I just wanted to read that again because it's a very interesting perspective, like high value mindsets. It's like when you have the kind of money to sit there and expense yourself like that, the cheaper route is to sometimes waste something else to a lesser extent. That reminds me of a freaking story real quick where this gentleman, he was a celebrity and he was in this European airport, and to switch his ticket would have costed £200-300, but to change his name and to get a new ID with that name, then what was the incorrect name on his ticket was cheaper to go over there and get his new ID with a different name than it was to actually go and change the airport's ticket fee. Now that's high value mindset perspective of like, first you gotta even afford to get an airplane ticket, and then you gotta have the money to even afford to make the decision, well, do I want to spend that money or do I want to like get an alternative? And that's not something that just normal people deal with and make decisions on. I think it takes like a very special person in the hands of, or with their hands full of finances, to actually accomplish and live that kind of lifestyle. I think a lesser mind would have sat there, and if they did have the money, they would have been like, psh, whatever. I'm gonna go ahead and just pay that ticket fee. Spend all that extra money. You're a fool. Alright, let's continue. Curious children crowded close, ragged children who ate their fried dough as they watched. They watched hungrily the unwrapping of the sandwiches, and their fingers' sharp noses smelled the pickles, cheese, and spam. They didn't speak to the driver. They watched his hands as they carried food to his mouth. They did not watch him chew. Their eyes followed the hand that held the sandwich. After a while, the tenant who could not leave the place came out and squatted in the shade beside the tractor. "Why, you're Joe Davis's boy!" Exclamation point. "Sure," the driver said. "Well, what are you doing this kind of work for? Against your own people? Question mark. $3 a day. I get damn sick of creeping for my dinner. And I'm not getting it. I got a wife and kids. We gotta eat. $3 a day, and it comes every day." "That right," said the tenant. "But for your $3 a day, 15 or 20 families can't eat at all. Nearly 100 people have to go out and wander on the roads for your $3 a day. Isn't that right?" Question mark. And the driver said, "Can't think of that. Can't think of that. Gotta think of my own kids. $3 a day. And it comes every day. Times are changing, mister. Don't you know?" Question mark. "Can't make a living on the land unless you got 2, 5, 10,000 acres and a tractor. Cropland isn't for little guys like us anymore. You don't kick up a bull because you can't make Fords or because you're not the telephone company? Well, crops are like that now. Nobody to do about it. You're trying to get $3 a day somewhere? You try to get $3 a day somewhere. That's the only way." The tenant pondered. "Funny thing about that. If a man owns a little property, that property is his. It's part of him. And like him, if he owns property, only he could walk on it and handle it, and if be sad and when it's not doing well and feel fine when the rain falls on it, and the property is his. In some way, he's bigger because he owns it. Even if he isn't successful, he's big with his property. Isn't that so?" And the tenant pondered more. "But let a man get property he don't be seen. He can't take time to get his fingers in. Can't be there to walk on it. Why, then the property is the man. He can't do what he wants. He can't think what he wants. The property is the man. Stronger than he is, and he is small, not big. Only his possessions are big, and he is the servant of his property. That is so, too." The driver munched the branded pie and threw the crust away. "Times have changed, don't you know?" Question mark. "Thinking about stuff like that don't feed the kids. Get your $3 a day. Feed your kids. You got no call to worry about anybody's kids but your own. You get a reputation for talking like that, you'll never get $3 a day. Big shots won't give you $3 a day if you're worrying about anything but your $3 a day. Nearly 100 people on the road for $3. Where will we go? Question mark. And that reminds me," the driver says, "you better get out of here soon. I'm going through the dooryard after dinner." "You filled in the well this morning?" "I know. Had to keep the line straight. But I'm going through the dooryard after dinner. Got to keep the line straight. And well, you know Joe Davis, my old man. And so I tell you this. I got orders wherever there's a family not moved out. If I have an accident, get too close and cave the house in a little, well, I might get a couple extra bucks. My youngest kids never had no shoes yet. I built this house with my hands. Straight old nails to put in the sheathing on. Rafters are wired to the stringers with baling wire. It's mine. I built it. You bump it down, I'll be in the window with a rifle. You come a little too close and I'll pop you like a rabbit. It's not me. There's nothing I can do. I lost my job if they don't do it. And look, suppose you kill me, ? They'll just hang you. But long before you're hung, there'll be another guy on the tractor. And he'll bump the house down too. You're not killing the right guy. That's so, said the tenant. Who gives you orders? ? I'll go after him. He'll be the one to kill. Page 40. You're wrong. He got his orders from the bank. The bank told him, clear those people out or it's your job. But there's a president of the bank. There's a board of directors. I'll fill up the magazine of the rifle and go into the bank. The driver said, the fellow was telling me the bank gets orders from the east. The orders were, make the land show profitable, close you up. Where does it stop? ? Who can we shoot? ? I don't aim to starve to death before I kill the man that's starving me. I don't know. Maybe there's nobody to shoot. Maybe the thing isn't meant at all. Maybe, like you said, the property isn't doing it. Anyways, I told you my orders. Or, I apologize, let me read that again. Maybe, like you said, the property's doing it. Anyway, I told you my orders. I got to figure, the tenant said. We all got to figure. There's some way to stop this. It's not like lightning or earthquakes. We got a bad thing made by men. By God, there's something we could change. The tenant sat in his doorway and the driver thundered his engine and started off. Tracks falling and curving. Harrows combing and folly of the cedar slipping into the ground. I'm going to check out that word too. It was like Phalli. Phally, yeah. Phally. Should be looking that word up later. The poly of the cedar slipping into the ground. Across the dooryards, the tractor cut, and the hard, foot-beating ground was seeded field. And the tractor cut through again. The uncut space was 10 feet wide, and back he came. The iron guard bit into the house corner, crumbled the wall, and wrecked the little house from its foundations so that it fell away, crushed like a bug. And the driver was giggling, and with the rubber mask covering his nose and mouth, the tractor cut a straight line on, and the air and the ground vibrated with this thunder. The tenement stared after it, his rifle in his hand. His wife was beside him, and the quiet children behind, and all of them stared after the tractor. Chapter 6, page 41. We are halfway through in both the video and in how far we have to get with this book. So, of course, in the video, we're not going to get through 40 pages within this 30 minutes, but we are officially halfway through. When we get to page 80, we can call it quits, because that's why I officially started this YouTube thing. And yeah, I am very proud to keep pushing along. And you know, like my coworker told me, it was so funny because that man said, "You just gotta suck it up." And I told him, I was like, "Man, you're right." Chapter 6, page 41. The Reverend Casey and young Tom stood on the hill. Young Tom, Mr. Reed. Tom stood on the hill and looked down at the Joel place. The small, unpainted house was massed at one corner, and he had been pushed off its foundation so that the slump at an angle, its blind front windows point out a spot of the sky. So yeah, like, clearly that tenant house was, if you know, was Pa's and Grandpa's and Tom's family's house. So they're just coming walking up to that. Basically, we just got they were just referred to as tenant men, and you know, this weird way to refer to who the characters actually were. That was Pa talking to him. The kids that were watching her were Ruthie and Winefield. The women that stepped out of the house was Ma or Grandma, you know, spoken about Grandpa. So all that was just them. I love it because I actually know this time around what's happening, who's happening. The Reverend Casey and young Tom stood on the hill and looked down at the Joel place. The small, unpainted house was smashed at one corner, just like in the last chapter. Smashed at one corner and had been pushed off its foundation so that the slumped at an angle. Its blind front windows point out a spot the sky well above the horizon. The fences were gone, and the cotton grew in the dooryard and up against the house, and the cotton was about the shed barn. The outhouse laid on its side, and the cotton grew close against it. Where the dooryard had been pounded hard by the bare feet of children, and by stomping horses' hooves, and by the broad wagon wheels, it was cultivated now, and the dark green, dusty cotton grew. Young Tom stared for a long time at the ragged willows beside the dry horse trot, at the concrete base where the pump had been. "Jesus," he said at last. "Hell must have popped over. There ain't nothing living here." At last he moved quickly down the hill, and Casey followed him. He looked into the barn shed, deserted, a little ground straw on the floor, and had Mole's stall in the corner, and had the mule stall in the corner. And as he looked in, there was a skittering on the floor, and the family mice faded in under the straw. So there was poo-poo on the floor, and a family of mice faded in under the straw. Joel paused at the entrance of the tool shed. Lento? I don't know that word. I'm going to put that in. Leanto. Lento. Looks like lean into, so lento. Tool shed lean-to, and no tools were there. A broken plow points, a mess of hay-wire in the corner, an iron wheel from a hay rake, and a rag-gnawed mule collar. A rag-gnawed mule collar, wow. A flag gallon oil can crusted with dirt and oil, and a pair of torn overalls hanging on a nail. "There ain't nothing left," said Joel. Said Tom, my boy Tom. "We had pretty nice tools. There ain't nothing left." Casey said, "If I was still a preacher, I'd say the arm of the Lord had struck. But nothing, I don't know what happened. I've been away. I didn't hear nothing." They walked towards the concrete well cap, walked through cotton plants to get to it, and boils were forming on the cotton, and the land was cultivated. "We never planted here," Joel said. "We always kept this clear." "Why, you can't get a horse in here. You can't get a horse in here now without him tropping the cotton. They paused at the dry water and trot, and the proper weeds that should grow under a trot were gone, and the old thick wood of the trot was dry and cracked. On a well cap, the bolts that had held the pumps stuck up, their threads rusty and nuts gone. Joel looked into the tubes of the well and spat and listened. He dropped a claw down at the well and listened. She was a good well, he said. Can't hear water. He seemed reluctant to go into the house. He dropped the clod after the clod down the well. Maybe they're all dead, he said. Somebody had told me. I'd gotten word some way. Maybe they left a letter or something to tell you in the house. Why, they don't know you was coming out? ? I don't know, said Tom. No, I guess not. I didn't know myself till a week ago. Let's look into the house. She's all pushed out of shape. Something knocked the hell out of her. They walked slowly towards the sagging house. Two of the supports of the porch roof were pushed out so that the roof flopped down on one end, and the house corner was crushed in. Through a maze of splintered wood, the room at the corner was visible. The front house hung open inward, and a low, strong gate across the front door hung outward on leather hinges. Joel stopped at the step, a 12 by 12 timber. Doorsteps here, he said, but they're gone. Or Ma's dead. He pointed to the low gate across the front door. If Ma was anywhere about, that gate would be shut and locked. That's one thing she's always done. Seems that gate was shut. His eyes were warm. Ever since that pig got in over to Jacobs and ate the baby. Millie Jacobs was just out in the barn. She come in where the pig was still eating. Well, Millie Jacobs was in a family way, and she went raving. Never did get over it. Touched ever since. But Ma took a lesson from it. She never left the pig gate open unless she was in the house herself. Never did forget. No, they're gone. Or dead. He climbed to the split so a freaking pig ate a baby? Yeah, ever since the pig got over to Jacobs and ate the baby. The hell? He climbed to the split porch and looked into the kitchen. The windows were broken out and thrown rocks laid on the ground, and the floor and walls sagged steeply away from the door, and the stiff dust was on the boards. Joel pointed to the broken glass and the rocks. Kids, he said. They got 20 miles to bust a window. I done it myself. They know we're in the house is empty. They know. That's the first things kids do when folks move out. The kitchen was empty for furniture. Stove gone and the round stovepipe hole in the wall showing light. On the sink shelf lay an old beer opener and a broken fork where a wooden handle gone. Joel slipped cautiously into the room, and the floor groaned under its weight. An old copy of the Philadelphia Ledger was on the floor against the wall. I also did research on the Philadelphia Ledger. It was in 1800s or in early 1900s, a newspaper company in Philadelphia. It was pretty interesting doing that read, but I liked it. So whatever the Philadelphia Ledger was, that was even a predecessor to them back then. So like finding a Philadelphia Ledger to them would have been like us finding like a friggin' 1930s, 1940s New York Times magazine. Yeah. New York Times newspaper, whatever you want to call it. Anyways. It was on the floor against the wall, and Paige's yellow and curling Joy looked into the bedroom. No bed, no chairs, nothing. On the wall, a picture of an Indian girl in color, labeled Red Wing, a beg slat leaning against the wall, and in one corner a woman's high-buttoned shoe, curled up into the toes and broke over the instep. Joel picked it up and looked at it. I remember this, he said. This is Ma's. It's all worn out now. Ma liked them shoes. Had them for years. They went and took everything. No, they went and took everything. The sun had lowered until it came through and angled in the windows now, and it flashed on the edges of the broken glass. Joel turned at last and went out and crossed the porch. He sat down on the edge of it and rested his bare feet on the 12 by 12 step. The evening light was on the fields, and the cotton plants threw long shadows on the ground, and the molting willow trees threw a long shadow. Casey sat down beside Tom. "They never wrote you nothing?" he asked. "No, like I said, there wasn't people to write. Paul could write, but he wouldn't. Didn't like to. He gave him the shivers to write. He could work out a catalog order as good as the next fella, but he wouldn't write no letters just for ducks." They sat side by side, staring off into the distance. Joel laid his rolled coat onto the porch beside him. His independent hand rolled a cigarette, smoothed it and lighted it, and he inhaled deeply and blew the smoke out through his nose. "Something's wrong," he said. "I can't put my finger on her. I got an itch that something's wronger in hell. Just this house pushing around and my folks gone." Casey said, Right over the ditch was. Right over there the ditch was, where I done the baptism. That wasn't mean, but you was tough. Hung on to that little girl's pigtails like a bulldog. We baptized you both in the name of the Holy Ghost. You still hung on. Old Tom said, "Hold 'em under the water." So I shoved your head down till you started bubbling, and before you let go of that pigtail, you wasn't mean, but you was tough. Sometimes a kid grows up with a big jolt of spirit in him," Casey said. All right, page 44. We're making great timing. I also want to get a hydration check in real quick. I don't look like Tom at all, but I'm sure if Tom saw me, talk to me, he'd probably want to wear my outfit. Probably look at this outfit and be like, "Man, where'd you get that there, fella?" I'd be like, "Hey, Tom, just got it from my father's closet, Tom." I'm just fucking playing. Like I'm all making Tom talk to himself. "Well, howdy. Nice to make your acquaintance, Adam." "Thank you, Tom. Shoot, I'm sorry to see your family go through such hard times." "Ah, don't worry about it. It's in the blood." It truly is. Hard times have always fallen upon these people, and they still make good choices. I love the Joel family. Something expo packed and ready. I'm gonna go ahead and continue. A hydration check, right? If you haven't, go ahead. If you have, I got it. A lean gray cat came sneaking out of the barn and crept through. Aw. I know what's about to happen next, and it makes me so sad. Alright, let's do this. It crept through the cotton plants to the end of the porch. It leaped silently up to the porch and crept low-belly towards the men. It came to a place between and behind the two, and then it sat down, its tail stretched out straight and flat to the floor, and the last inch of it flicked. The cat sat and looked off into the distance, where the men were looking. Joel glanced around at it. "By God!" Exclamation point. "Look who's here! Somebody stayed." He put out his hand, but the cat leaped away out of reach and sat down and licked the pads of its lifted paw. Joel looked at it as his face was puzzled. I know what's the matter, he cried. "The cat just made me figure what's wrong." "Seems to me there's a lot wrong," said Casey. "No, it's more just this place. When the cat just moved in with some neighbors. with the rances. How come nobody ripped some lumber off this house? Question mark. There's been nobody here for 3-4 months, and nobody stole no lumber? Nice planks on the barn shed. Plenty good planks on the house. Window frames. And nobody took them? That ain't right. That's what's been bothering me, and I couldn't catch hold of her. Well, what's that figure out for you? Question mark. Casey reached down and slipped off his sneakers and ringed his long toes on the step. I don't know. Seems like maybe there ain't any neighbors. If there was, wouldn't all them nice planks be here? Question mark. Why, Jesus Christ! Exclamation point. Albert Rance took his family, kids and dogs and all, into Oklahoma City one Christmas. They were going to visit with Albert's cousins. Well, folks around here thought Albert moved away without saying nothing. Figured maybe he got dead since some women squaring off at him. When Albert came back a week later, there wasn't a thing left in his house. Stove was gone, beds were gone, window frame was gone, and 8 feet of planks were gone. Off the south side of the house, you could look right through her. He come driving home just as Muley Graves was going away with 3 doors at the... Oh, Muley Graves was going away with 3 doors and a well pump. Took Albert 2 weeks driving around the neighborhood before he got all his stuff back. Casey scratched his toes luxuriously. Didn't nobody give him an argument? Question mark. All of them just gave his stuff up? Question mark. Sure. They wasn't stealing it. They thought he left it, and they just took it. He got all it back, all but a sofa pillow, velvet with a picture of an Inju on it. Albert claimed Grandpa got it. Claimed Grandpa was Inju blood. That's why he wanted that picture. Well, Grandpa did get her, but he didn't give a damn about the picture on her. He just liked her. He used to pick her around and he'd put her on wherever he was going to sit. He never would give her back to Albert. Says if Albert wants his pillow so bad, let him come and get her. But you better come soon before I blow his goddamn stinking head off. If he comes messing around my pillow. So finally Albert gave up and made Grandpa a present of that pillow. It gave Grandpa an idea about he took a saving chicken feathers. Says he was going to have a whole damn bed of feathers. But he never got no feather bed. One time, Pa got mad at a skunk under the house. Pa slapped the skunk with a 2x4 and Ma burned all Grandpa's feathers so we could live in the house. He laughed. Grandpa's a tough old bastard. Just sat on that Inju pillow and says, let Albert come and get her. Why? He says, I'll take that squirt and wring him out like a pair of drawers. The cat crept close between the men again, and its tails lay flap and its whiskers jerked now and then. The sun drove low towards the horizon, the dusty air was red and golden. The cat reached out at a great questioning paw and touched Joel's coat. He looked around. Hell, I forgot the turtle. I ain't gonna pack it all over hill. He unwrapped the land turtle and pushed it under the house. So he just let the turtle go. And slashed at its He unwrapped the land turtle and pushed it under the house, but in a moment it was out, headed southwest as it had been for the first. The cat leaped at it and struck at its straining head and slashed at its moving feet. The old hard humorous head was pulled in and the thick tail slapped it under the shell. When the cat grew tired of waiting for it and walked off, the turtle headed on southwest again. Young Tom, Joel, and the preacher watched the turtle go, waving its legs and boasting its heavy, high-domed shell along towards the southwest. The cat crept along behind for a while, but in a dozen yards it arched its back like a strong, taut bow and yawned, and came stealthily back towards the seated men. Where the hell you suppose he's going? Question mark, said Joel. I've seen turtles all my life. They're always going someplace. They always seem to want to get there. The gray turtle seated itself between and behind them again. It blinked slowly. The skin over its shoulders jerked forward under a flea, and then slipped slowly past. The car lifted a paw and inspected it. with the flicked its claws out and again experimentally and licked its paws with a shell-pink tongue. The red sun touched the horizon and spread out like a jellyfish, and the sky above it seemed much brighter and more alive than it had ever been. Joel unrolled his new yellow shoes from his coat, and he brushed his dusty feet with his hands before he slipped them on. The preacher, staring off across the fields, said, "Somebody's coming! Somebody's coming! Look!" Exclamation point. "Down there! Right through the cotton!" Joel looked where Casey's finger pointed. "Coming afoot," he said. "Can't see him for the dust he's rising. Who the hell is coming here? ? They watched the figure approaching in the evening light, and the dust it raised was reddened by the setting sun. "Man," said Joel. The man drew closer, and as he walked past the barn, Joel said, "Why, I know him. That's Muley Graves. See, I told you freaking mentioned Muley earlier. That's cool." And he called, "Hey, Muley! ! How are you? ? The approaching man stopped, startled by the call, and then he came on quickly. He was a lean man, rather short. His movements were jerky and quick. He carried a gunny sack in his hand. His blue jeans were pale at knee and seat, and he wore an old black suit coat, stained and spotted, the sleeves torn loose from the shoulders and back, and ragged holes worn through at the elbows. His black hat was stained as coat, and the band tore half free, flopped up and down as he walked. Muley's face was smooth and unwrinkled, but it wore the truculent look of a bad child. So truculent's like the expression of like either an angry child or just anger in itself. So whenever he was like, but it wore the truculent look of a bad child, so it wore the angry look of a bad child, I believe is what he was trying to get towards. The mouth held tight and small, or he was just trying to say like, wore the childish look of a bad child, but there's another word on here that goes right next to it, and it's like truculent and something uculent, something else. Alright, let's get back to it. The mouth held tight and small, the little eyes half scowling, half petulant. That's the word. I literally just had to read a sentence later. Petulant. "You remember Muley?" Jones said softly to the preacher. "Who's that? ? The advancing man called. "Who's that?" The advancing man called. Joel did not answer. Muley came close, very close, before he made out the faces. "Well, I'll be damned," he said. "It's Tommy Joel. When'd you get out here, Tommy?" He dropped the sack on the ground. 2 days ago. 2 days ago. I don't know, I need to change up the voice because it sounds too much like Tom. 2 days ago. It's even fucking with my Tom voice right now because I'm thinking about it too much. Took a little while to hitchhike home. And look here what I found. Where's my folks, Muley? What's the house all smashed up for and caught and placed in the dooryard? ? By golly. By God, it's lucky I came by. ! Said Muley. 'Cause old Tom worried himself. When they were fixing to move, I sat in the kitchen there and I told Tom I wasn't going to move. By God, I told him that, and Tom said, I'm worrying my... Should I do Tom's voice? No, it's him depicting Paul, so I'm not going to do Paul's voice. Maybe I'll try to do like him interpreting Paul's voice. Tom says, I worry myself there about Tommy. Suppose he comes home and there ain't nobody here. What'll he think? ? I says, why don't you write down a letter? And Tom says, maybe I will. I'll think about her, but I don't. You keep your eye out for Tommy and you still around. I'll be around, I says. I'll be around till hell freezes over. There ain't nobody could run a guy named Graves out of this country. There ain't none, and they ain't done it neither. Tom said impatiently, "Where's my folks?" Question mark. Tell about you staying up and later, but where are my folks? Question mark. Well, they were going to stick her out with the bank coming and trucking off the place. Your grandpa stood out with his rifle, and he blew the headlights off the car, but she come on just the same. Hydration check. Real quick. Oh wow, the soft music I was playing ended. Very interesting. Okay, we are almost done. Let me finish this page out. Your grandpa stood out here with the rifle and blew the headlights off of that cat, but she come on just the same. Your grandpa didn't want to kill the guy driving the cat, and that was Willie Feely. And Willie knowed it, so he just come on and bumped the hell out of the house. Old Tom just stood there cursing, but it didn't do him no good. When he sees the cat coming and busting through the house, he gave her a shake like a dog shakes a rat. Well, it took some out of Tom. Kind of got into him. He ain't been the same ever since. Where are my folks? Question mark. Tom said angrily. Oh, combined Tom and Joel. My bad. What I'm telling you. Took 3 trips with your Uncle John's wagon. Took the stove and the pump and the beds. You should have seen them beds go out and all them kids of your grandma and grandpa standing up against the headboards. And your brother Noah sand them smoking a cigarette and spitting la-di-da over the side of the wagon. Joel opened his mouth to speak. They're all at your Uncle John's, Muley said quickly. Oh, all the Johns. What are you doing? What are they doing there? Question mark. Now stick to her for a second, Muley. Just stick to her. In just a minute, you can go on your way. What are they doing there? Question mark. Well, they've been chopping corn, all of them, even the kids and your grandpa. Getting money together and they could shovel on west. Gonna buy a car and shovel on west where it's easy living. See, they should have just went up north. There ain't nothing here. Hi, Dad. There ain't nothing here. 50 cents a clean acre for chopping corn and folks begging for the chance to chop. They ain't gone yet? Question mark. No, said Muley. Not that I know. Last I heard was 4 days ago, when I seen your brother Noah out shooting jackrabbits, and he says they aiming to go about 2 weeks. John got his notice, he got to get off. Just got to go on about 8 miles to John's place. You'll find your folks piled at John's house like gophers in a winter burrow. Okay, said Joel. Page 48. We're going to go ahead and stop there. Thank you very much for being here. Since we got a little bit more time left, let's go ahead and smoke this, and I will catch you lovely people later. So Tom's getting a better idea of what's going on in the family's current situation, and meeting people from his past that are keeping him up to date of who and what the circumstances are for and how. It's really good. I'm glad that the story conveys that, because that's proper communications between humans before the internet happens. Alright, you guys take care. Peace.